If my friend and I had made even one small mistake that day, I probably wouldn't be here telling you this story. This happened during my junior year of high school in Ohio. It started like any other Tuesday. My friend Liam and I were sitting through our history class when we asked our teacher if we could use the restroom. She nodded, and we walked out into the hallway without thinking twice. The halls were almost empty. A few students were heading back to their classrooms, and everything felt completely normal. We had just reached the restroom when a loud alarm suddenly echoed through the entire school. A robotic voice came over the intercom. "Emergency lockdown. This is not a drill. Lock all classroom doors immediately." At first, we froze. We honestly thought it was another lockdown drill. Then every classroom door around us slammed shut. Teachers pulled students inside. The hallway went silent within seconds. Liam looked at me. "Run." We sprinted back toward our classroom, but we were too late. The lights inside were already off. The door was locked. Our teacher couldn't even see us through the small window. The announcement repeated, "Remain silent. Stay inside your classrooms until law enforcement arrives." Standing alone in an empty hallway during a real lockdown is a feeling I hope no one ever experiences. We had nowhere to go. Then Liam pointed toward the stairwell. "The basement." It wasn't a good idea. It was just the only idea we had. We hurried downstairs into the school's old maintenance basement. The air immediately felt colder. The lights were dim, and most of the rooms were filled with old furniture, broken desks, and maintenance equipment. Neither of us spoke. We just kept walking. Then I stopped, about 50 feet away. Someone was standing at the end of the hallway. A man. He wasn't wearing a police uniform. He wasn't dressed like a teacher. He wasn't carrying any maintenance equipment. He was just standing there, completely still. His face was hidden in the shadows. I grabbed Liam's arm. He looked in the same direction. Without saying a word, we quickly ducked behind a stack of old storage boxes. I whispered, "What if that's why they locked the school down?" Neither of us answered. We stayed perfectly still. Then something happened that made my blood run cold. The man slowly turned his head and looked directly toward us. There was no way he should have been able to see us. But somehow, it felt like he did. Then he started walking, slowly, straight toward us. Liam grabbed my hoodie. "We have to move." The second he got close enough, we ran. Our footsteps echoed through the basement. Behind us, we heard another pair of footsteps, slow, heavy, following us. We didn't dare look back. At the end of the hallway, we found an old storage room. We rushed inside and quietly shut the door. The room was small. An old wooden table stood in the middle. Broken chairs were pushed against the walls. Dust covered everything. Without saying a word, we crawled underneath the table. Neither of us moved. A few seconds later, we heard footsteps outside. Then, the doorknob slowly turned. The door creaked open. Someone walked inside. Every muscle in my body locked up. The room became so quiet. I could hear Liam trying not to breathe too loudly. The footsteps stopped. He was just standing there. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Every second felt longer than the last. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. Minutes passed. It honestly felt like forever. Later, Liam said he thought nearly 10 minutes had gone by. Then, the footsteps started moving again. Slowly. He walked farther into the room. Liam looked at me, very carefully. We began crawling out from under the table. Every movement felt painfully loud. The man never turned around. We reached the doorway, stepped into the hallway, And the second we had enough space, we ran. We didn't stop until we reached an emergency exit near the back of the school. Outside, several police officers were already there. One officer immediately pulled us behind his patrol car and asked where we'd been. We told them everything, especially about the man in the basement. Within minutes, officers searched the entire lower level of the school. Every hallway, every storage room, every maintenance area. They found nothing. No suspect, no signs of forced entry, no evidence that anyone had been hiding down there. We both gave the exact same description, but no one matching that description was ever identified. The investigation eventually ended. As far as we know, the police never figured out who we saw that day. Maybe he escaped before officers reached the basement. Maybe there was an explanation none of us ever learned. I honestly don't know. All I know is that both Liam and I saw the same man, and neither of us has stepped foot inside that basement ever again. During my sophomore year, something happened during a school lockdown that I still can't explain. That day, the weather was awful. It was only around 12:30 in the afternoon, but the sky was so dark that it looked like evening. Heavy rain slammed against the windows, and the thunder was loud enough to shake the classrooms. My friend Garrett and I had left class a few minutes early to return a history book to the school library. We thought we'd be back before our teacher even noticed we were gone. We were wrong. The second we stepped inside the library, the emergency alarm echoed through the entire building. Then the announcement came over the speakers. Attention, this is not a drill. Initiate lockdown immediately. The librarian immediately froze. She looked toward the front entrance, then back at us. Get out of sight, now. She rushed into her office and locked the door behind her. Garrett grabbed my arm. What do we do? The front entrance to the library was too far away. If someone dangerous was already in the hallway, we weren't about to run straight toward them. Behind the bookshelves was an old storage section where damaged books and unused furniture were kept. We slipped behind the shelves and crouched in complete silence. For about 10 minutes, nothing happened, just rain, and the occasional police siren somewhere outside. Neither of us said a word. Then, the library's front door handle slowly moved. Someone was trying to open it, not banging, not forcing it, just slowly turning the handle. We stared at each other. If it was the police, why weren't they saying anything? The handle stopped moving. A few seconds later, we heard footsteps. They weren't coming from outside anymore. They were inside the library, slow, steady, walking across the wooden floor. Garrett leaned close to me and whispered, "Did someone just come in?" I nodded. The footsteps moved deeper into the library. Then they stopped. Complete silence. I slowly lowered my head just enough to look beneath the bookshelf. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, a pair of black boots stepped into view. They stopped less than 20 feet away from us. Whoever was wearing them didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even shift their weight. They just stood there, watching. Nearly a full minute passed. I remember my legs starting to cramp because neither of us dared move. Finally, the boots turned. The footsteps slowly faded away into another aisle. We waited. 5 minutes, maybe longer. Neither of us moved. Then Garrett quietly pulled out his phone. He had 1 bar of signal. At the exact same moment, every student in the school received an emergency text. Remain hidden. Police are clearing the building room by room. Do not respond to unknown voices or movement. That message made my stomach drop, because someone had already been walking around inside the library. Another 10 minutes passed. Then, from somewhere deeper in the room, we heard a bookshelf shift, not fall, just move, like someone had leaned against it. Garrett squeezed my arm so hard it actually hurt. I could hear breathing, not mine, not Garrett's, someone else's. Close enough that I was afraid they'd hear us breathing too. Then, everything went quiet again. About 20 minutes later, the PA system finally announced, "All clear." Within seconds, several police officers entered the library. One officer found us behind the shelves and quickly escorted us outside. When we told them someone had been inside with us, their expressions changed immediately. They cleared the entire library. Every aisle, every office, every storage room, every emergency exit. Nothing. No suspect, no student, no staff member, nobody. One officer even asked us separately to make sure our stories matched. They did. Every detail. The boots, the footsteps, the breathing, everything. Before we left, I looked back toward the aisle where we'd seen the boots. The rain had soaked the entrance carpet near the front doors, leading away from it. There were wet boot prints across the floor. They went through the library, right to the aisle where we'd been hiding. And then, they simply stopped. There were no return footprints, no second trail, nothing. The officers photographed them before anyone could walk through the area. Later, they told us they believed the suspect had somehow avoided capture during the confusion. Maybe they were right. Maybe there was a logical explanation. But Garrett and I both know what we saw. Someone walked into that library during the lockdown. Someone stood only a few feet away from us. Someone was breathing in the dark. And somehow, they were never found. Last spring, I had to stop by a hospital just outside Columbus, Ohio, to drop off medication for my grandfather. He'd been admitted earlier that week, and my mom realized she had forgotten one of his prescriptions at home. Since I lived the closest, I volunteered to bring it over. By the time I arrived, it was a little after 8:30 p.m. The hospital felt unusually quiet. A nurse pointed me toward the elevators and told me my grandfather was on the 4th floor. I just stepped out of the elevator when a loud alarm echoed through the hallway. A few seconds later, the overhead speakers came on. "Attention! Security lockdown. This is not a drill. All staff, patients, and visitors must immediately move into the nearest room and remain there until further notice. Stay away from all hallways." Within seconds, everything became chaotic. Nurses hurried patients into rooms. Doctors disappeared behind closing doors. Visitors rushed in every direction. I froze for a second, not knowing where to go. By the time I started moving, every nearby room had already been locked. I ran farther down the hallway until I noticed one patient room with a door slightly open. I slipped inside, quietly locked the door, turned off the lights, and crawled underneath the hospital bed. The room was completely empty. It looked like a patient had recently been discharged. For the next few minutes, I heard nothing except the air conditioning. Then, footsteps. Slow, heavy, walking down the hallway. They weren't running. They sounded calm, almost like someone was searching every room one by one. The hospital room door had a narrow rectangular window near the top. From where I was hiding, I could barely see it. I slowly lifted my head just enough to look. A man was standing outside. He wasn't wearing hospital clothes. He wasn't wearing a police uniform. He just stood there, looking through the glass. I immediately lowered my head and stopped breathing. A few seconds later, the door handle slowly moved. Someone was trying to open it. Once, twice, then harder. The lock rattled so loudly that I thought it was going to break. I covered my mouth with my hand, terrified he would hear me breathing. After what felt like forever, the handle stopped moving. The footsteps slowly faded away. I stayed under that bed for what felt like an hour, even though it was probably only 15 or 20 minutes. Then I heard a different sound. Multiple pairs of footsteps. People shouting commands. Someone yelled, "Police, stay where you are." A few moments later, there was a knock on the door. A police officer identified himself before unlocking it with a master key. When I came out from under the bed, my hands were shaking so badly that I could barely stand. The officers escorted everyone on the floor to a secure area. Later that night, detectives explained what had happened. Earlier that evening, a violent inmate had escaped while being treated at another medical facility nearby. Investigators believed he had entered the hospital before the lockdown began. The last confirmed sighting placed him on the 3rd floor. Officers searched every floor, every stairwell, every storage room, and even the roof. They never found him. To this day, nobody has explained who was standing outside my door on the 4th floor. Because according to the investigation, the suspect was never confirmed to have made it past the 3rd floor. Maybe there was another explanation. Maybe someone else tried my door during the confusion. But every time I think about that night, I remember the sound of that locked handle turning. And I still wonder what would have happened if I had reached that room just a few seconds later.